the Lake Champlain monster.
What's your ETA? We'll be there in 2 minutes. Come on, we have lives to save here.
Hey guys, how's it going again? This is Telltale Guys.
Yes.
We like it. Yes, we like all the noise and the cheers and the Valley Girls saying yes.
Yes. That's a Star Wars actress.
Really, which actors?
I don't know her name. She was in The Acolyte.
Oh, okay.
The new one that was awful, but
I actually did see it, and I kind of like let my guard down. I just like watched it. Like I've been actually, I got like a free thing of Disney Plus, and so like I've just been enjoying watching Star Wars again, just to appeal to my inner kid. And so, I mean, it wasn't great, but like I don't think it deserved all the hatred. It didn't scream crazy wokeness to me,
okay.
but you know, it wasn't amazing either. So,
So Zane, when did you get paid off by Disney to be a giant shill for their products?
Well, sorry to tell you, I'm leaving the podcast because of that. I'm just kidding. Yeah. So, but wasn't terrible, but wasn't good either. But I think it comes down to the fact that it had low viewers, and so bye.
Yes.
I think she should be saying no. But anyways, yeah. Hey guys, again. I'm Zane. I'm with my co-host Josh, and this is Telltale Guys, and we're here again to go into some mystery, some lore, and some legend. But before we dive into it, Josh, how was your week this week?
It was as good as any other week, I suppose. I made it through, as well as all of y'all who listen to us. You made it through the week, even though I think we post on Wednesday or Tuesday or something. So really, we record on the end of the weeks, Fridays usually, and then you guys hear it a couple days later, a few weeks later.
Thank you for the explanation. That was in high demand, I'm sure.
Josh giving you the behind the scenes dirt on Telltale Guys. Saying, what do you got?
Well, actually, Josh and I were kind of talking about what happened only a few days ago. This is kind of a cool news nugget that occurred that kind of goes with the vibe of our show, and also in line with our first episode, strange, weird noises the astronauts hear in space. That was not the correct title, but very close. But so basically, Boeing's Starliner spacecraft on August 31st started hearing some strange noises in space, and the astronauts noticed it, and they talked down to base, I guess NASA, and were like, "Hey, we're hearing something." So yeah, Josh and I wanted to talk about this real quick before we jump into our main topic.
Oh yeah.
But let me go into and share. Share. So yeah, we'll maximize this for you. But basically, the Starliner aircraft, which is a Boeing spacecraft, it started. I guess it itself started to emit strange noises, but at first the astronauts didn't know what it was, and it sounds pretty crazy. But we'll go down to the audio so you can kind of hear it.
And this is the one where the astronauts have been stuck in space for like months, and they're just kind of stuck there waiting to be rescued, I guess.
That's correct. So let's take a listen.
Houston on 2, I've got a question about the Starliner.
Houston's with you, Butch. Go ahead.
There's a strange noise coming through the speaker, and I didn't know if you could connect into the Starliner and let me keep mic and let you hear. I don't know what's making it, but I don't know if it's something that maybe is connected between here and there, making that happen. But anyway, can you do that?
We can configure that, Butch. Give us a minute, and I'll call you back when it's ready.
Okay.
Station Houston on 2, we're configured for audio via hardline and CST, if you want to give us a call.
Okay, I'm in Starliner, and how do you read?
5x5, how many?
Yes, sir. Okay, I'm going to keep the mic up next to the speaker.
Copy. At negative, Butch, we did not hear anything. All right, Butch, that one came through. It was kind of like a pulsing noise, almost like a sonar ping.
Or space
I'll do it one more
gremlins.
time, and I'll let y'all scratch your heads to see if you can figure out what's going on. Here we go.
Weird.
Yeah.
Huh. All right.
So what is that?
That was weird.
You know,
Yeah.
I bet it was the aliens trying to get into their Billy Rocket cologne stash that they had in their space closet.
Speaking of high in demand, even the aliens or the space angels are
Yeah,
looking
Space
for it.
Angels, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a weird sound, Zane. It does sound like something's hitting on the side of the craft or something like that, or it kind of makes me think of like I mean it's a different genre, but like in Lord of the Rings or something when they're like just like in a deep dark cave or some fantasy
Mhm.
thing and they hear like elves or something working in the mine shafts or something like that. I don't know. But in
Yeah.
space.
Right. That would creep me out. I mean, it sounds mechanical, and I think from
Mm.
what has happened the past couple days, they confirmed it was something with the ship. But
Yeah.
I mean, I would be concerned if I was an astronaut. I'm like, what is that? I mean, it sounds creepy to me.
Definitely not something you want to hear when you're on a spaceship that is already having problems because you're stuck and can't get back to Earth. It's not comforting. That's
Right. So you said, I think they've been up there since June, and they've realized they can't come down until like the end of the year. Is that what that?
no, I think they can't actually get rescued until the beginning of next year, or maybe until April of next year. I forgot because it's something to do with like the cycles of how, because like
Oh,
Elon Musk has to go rescue them, and they're scheduled to launch at certain points to do other things, so they have to wait to come back when the thing is scheduled to
okay.
come back from his trip. So it's a big hot mess, but hopefully they'll get home safely and return to their families without any incidents, but
Yeah, for sure.
just a little bit of I guess a muscle decay from being in space for so long, but that
Some
happens.
good old radiation cancer that might come their way. Ugh.
Well, hopefully not that,
Yeah,
and hopefully they don't come back with any weird creatures like we'll talk about for the main
but
part of the show.
but these creatures are more terrestrial, so we'll just come back
Yes,
down to Earth. So,
so
but
supposedly.
like you said, we hope they come back safely. But
Yeah.
interesting story that came out this past week.
Yeah. So hopefully we don't hear any more negative up there. But
Mhm.
anyway, so this week, Zane, this week we're going to be talking about Lake Champlain and their monster up there.
Hmm.
It's a lake monster. I'm sure you're familiar with lake monsters.
Mhm.
Probably Loch Ness monster is what comes to mind when most people hear lake
Most
monster.
famous one. I know I've heard of others, but I can't remember their name. But yeah, Nessie is the big one.
Yeah, Nessie's the one that everyone wants to find, I guess. But yeah, we have them. They're all over the world. I was going to do an episode that touches on a lot more of them, but this one was just so deep. It's like you have to do multiple episodes for different lake monsters and stuff like that. But this one is interesting because it's right here in the U.S. of A. You don't have to go to Scotland for it. So Lake Champlain. Let me get my slides up for you. All right, so this is a reported, lake monster said to inhabit Lake Champlain. It's in, Vermont predominantly, a little bit up there in, Canada.
All right.
But Lake Champlain is about 125 miles long, and the deepest spot is 400 feet,
Wow.
and
Okay.
has an average depth of 64 feet, and its total square mileage of about 100 or 490 miles square foot.
That's
So it's a
a
pretty big lake,
that's a big lake.
Yeah,
That could house some big creatures, possibly.
possibly. I think a lot of people kind of consider it like a mini Great Lake. You
Mm.
can kind of see right there, Lake Ontario next door. It's kind of like in the same system
Mm.
that all the Great Lakes are.
Mhm.
So, so I think the big sighting of this particular creature came in 1977. This is just another view of the lake here, give you an
Oh,
idea of
nice.
its scope. Yeah, it's pretty.
It
It's
is very
beautiful.
pretty. It's probably very cold being all the way up there in Vermont.
Yeah, probably, or it's full of maple syrup. I don't know. It could
Ooh,
be
that'd
just
be
a lake
nice.
of maple syrup. That'd be fun.
I'll take some of that for my coffee any day.
Yeah, absolutely. Here you go.
Whoa,
Here's the
wow.
picture. If you're listening to us on just the audio, you'll have to go to YouTube to check out the pictures and stuff, obviously. But this is the photo, I guess, that's most associated with Champ from
Mhm.
1977. It was taken by Sandra Manzi, and she photographed what she claimed was this monster while vacationing at Lake Champlain. So there's the photo. Zane, you can kind of describe it to people, I guess.
Well, yeah, it kind of looks like the standard, Nessie look plesiosaur, I believe. Like, it's an ancient dinosaur, lake or water dinosaur, long neck, kind of like a brontosaurus type's head, hump of a back. And what's cool about this photo, and I remember seeing these photos too, is that the reflection off the neck looks very realistic. It looks like a very naturalistic pose for an animal. Um, it's just one of the better photos of any type of, I guess, if you want to call this a cryptid or anything. It looks better than the Nessie photo, to be honest, like the famous one. Yes. See, the reflection is nice off your pale skin there. So, uh, but yeah, it looks like that. It's got kind of like the craned neck, but
Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, very good description, Zane. Your eyesight is impeccable, I will
thank,
say.
thank you.
Now, I will say, even though this is the most widely circulated photo of this creature, there is debate onto the authenticity of it. Of course, like with any one of these photos, like is it like a fake photo? What's in this photo? I don't know. Some people believe it might be a floating log or some other natural object. But it's from 1977. We didn't have really good, just it wasn't like we have now in our pockets with like high res imagery and stuff like that. The person's taking a photo of film and kind of quickly, but it's not the first sighting of this creature. And they go sightings of this whatever's in this lake go back, before 1800s, way back in time.
Hmm.
And in fact, the indigenous people that lived around the lake, they have long spoken of a creature known as Tatoskok,
Hmm.
Tatoskok, something like that. I'm not up on all my indigenous languages, but they describe it as a large serpent-like beast that resides in the lake, and the creature was said to be a fearsome and powerful entity, revered and sometimes feared by the local Abenaki and Iroquois people. According to legend, Tatoskok was capable of causing whirlpools and stormy waters, and its presence was a significant part of local mythology, often associated with the power and mystery of the natural world. It is described by the native legends as an underwater horned serpent that eats people, and
Oh,
roughly translated, the name means great or big serpent.
hmm.
So kind of interesting. They have tales of this creature that go back, way back in time. Was it something that, like, they were kind of alluding to? Was it an actual creature, or were they using this creature's, like personifying it as like the natural environment that surrounds the lake?
Hmm.
To me, it seems like they were describing some kind of creature that
Yeah,
lived in the lake.
it kind of reminds me of a lot of different tales from indigenous tribes across um, North America and other countries, like of like Sasquatch or something like that, like
Sure, yeah.
revered in their culture, their history, and their storytelling.
Thunderbirds as well, yeah.
Thunderbirds, yeah.
Yeah, that's another one. But in mentioning that it has a horned serpent, it's kind of an interesting detail
Mhm.
to make on something. So keep that in mind, when we're talking about these descriptions. Just this thing has, a horn according to the native legends.
It might be a narwhal, the fear
Mm.
narwhal.
Zane, maybe you busted the case wide open. Although this picture that we're looking at doesn't look like a narwhal. So.
No, it doesn't.
All right, so that's predates settlers and stuff like that. But another sighting from 1918 by Captain Crum was reported by the Plattsburgh Republican, and the article was titled "Cape Ann Serpent on Lake Champlain." And let me see here. I got the here's an actual clipping of the article. It's very hard to read, but luckily we have a little reenactment of what the article was. Let me
Oh.
just play that for everybody here.
Excellent.
Oh, Mr. Printer, on Thursday last, inhabitants on the shore of Bullwaggy Bay were alarmed by the appearance of a monster, which, from the description, may be a relation of the great sea serpent. Captain Crumb, who witnessed the sight, relays that about 8 o'clock in the morning, when pulling off the shore in a scow, he discovered at a distance of not more than 200 yards an unusual undulation of the surface of the water, which was followed by the appearance of a monster, rearing its head more than 15 feet and moving with the utmost velocity to the south, at the same time lashing with its tail 2 large sturgeon and a billfish, which appeared to be engaged in pursuit. After the consternation occasioned by such a terrible spectacle has subsided, Captain Crumb took a particular survey of this singular animal, which he described to be about 187 feet long. Its head flat with 3 teeth, 2 in the under and 1 in the upper jaw, in shape similar to a seahorse, the color black, with a star in the forehead and a belt of red around the neck. Its body about the size of a hogshead, with bunches on the back as large as a common potash barrel. The eyes large and the color of peeled onion. He continued to move with astonishing rapidity towards the shore for about a minute, when suddenly he darted on the water and has not been seen since, although many fishing boats have been on the lookout. Captain Crumb informs me that he has sent an express to Captain Rich of Boston, communicating this intelligence, but is fearful that before his arrival this disturber of our waters may be changed to a pickerel. Mr. the celebrating engraver of the Battle of Plattsburgh, is now at the place, prepared to take a sketch of this terrible majesty, should he again make his appearance. I am, sir, with great respect, your obedient servant, Horse Mackerel.
Well,
All right.
it sounds
Thank
like we're definitely in the era of the Coca-Cola beverages with the actual cocaine, and I think this this individual was definitely on a couple cokes before that broadcast.
That's the thanks to the Chrono Zoom, my invention for bringing back the reading of that. So yeah, this description that's from the news article written about it from the sighting that was from 1918, I think. Yeah, 1918.
Mm.
And it was interesting in the article. I don't know if you picked up from the paperboy that was reading it, but the creature they said is 187 feet long. That is massive. Like
yeah,
that's about 3/4 of a football field, right?
Okay.
So yeah, because it's 300 feet long, about 187. Yeah, the
whole yardage feet thing. I can't remember how to.
Yeah, it could be 2 inches. It could be 75 miles, whatever a yard is. I don't know. But they were very descriptive on what it was. 187 feet long, had a flat head, with 3 teeth on the one side and 2 teeth on the bottom part, or was it 3 teeth, 2 on the under and 1 on the other? So it had one tooth on the top, 2 teeth on the bottom. Very odd.
Snaggled tooth.
Yeah, very snaggled tooth. And they described that it had a seahorse type head. It was black and had like the star shape on its forehead and like a red coloring around its neck. So all very, very particular descriptions here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think talk a little bit about the size and how thick it was, and about
did it the newscaster boy, whatever his name is, did he say like some fish were chasing after him, like he was in like a tussle?
Yeah, so they mentioned like there was 2 fish following sturgeon, and I think they call it a billfish, which is like a gar or something like that. So keep those fish in mind too. We'll talk a little bit maybe about them later, but the sturgeon and the billfish, they know what these things are. They're saying, hey, they're associating it with these particular fish, and this was different from that. Okay. So very interesting. Also in the news article, which is weird, they kind of censored the name of the person that he references in the article. He's talking about a Mr. and it beeped out because we didn't have the name, but he said it was a celebrated engraver of the Battle of Plattsburgh. And he was saying basically that person, if it's seen again, he'll come and do an engraving of whatever it was seen. Like that's how they did, eyewitness things back there with engravings, like think Civil War battles and stuff like that. But I did do a little bit of sleuthing. I was like, well, what is this mysterious name that's blanked out of this article? I kind of want to know who this Mr. So and so was, to kind of figure it out. So I did a little sleuthing, and I went ahead and looked up the Battle of Plattsburgh engraving and found out who made that. This is the Plattsburgh engraving, Zane. Beautiful,
Hmm.
beautiful art.
Yeah.
And it appears to be have been made by Benjamin Tanner. And maybe, I don't know, maybe he didn't want his name associated in the paper because it was kind of like a sensational story. It's like,
Mhm.
hey, why is this reputable guy tagged to this story about this lake monster? Maybe even back then they were kind of a little bit, I don't know. I just want to do engravings, but if you see it,
Right.
I'll come and do an engraving about it. So that's who I think they're talking about in it. It's not really that important to the overall story here. Just something a little aside I wanted to kind of
Hmm.
dig into a bit. So okay, so we understand maybe he didn't want to be associated with that, but maybe we have another sighting from a sheriff. A sheriff is more reputable, right? From the time, and this one's from 1873-ish time frame. Nathan Mooney, he was the Clinton County Sheriff, and to give you an idea, this is Clinton County up here on the top, or was it northwest side of Lake Champlain. So this is the area he was responsible for, and you can see it's about half of the left side of the lake is what this county runs through.
Okay.
So this sheriff, Nathan Mooney, in July 1873, he reported an enormous snake or water serpent somewhere between 25 to 35 feet long. Then in August, the steamship WB Edie, I think it's Edie, or it could be Eddie, EDDY, WB Eddie is the name of the steamship, turned over after it collided into Champ, according to a tourist board, the
Oh,
tourist
wow.
board of the area. And to give you an idea of the steamship, I believe this is the actual steamship. It was really hard to find, but I think this is WB Edie on Lake Champlain, and kind of give you an idea of the size. They're like passenger ferries, kind of like
Sure.
people stand on and they go sightseeing around the lake. So really fairly big. I couldn't find dimensions of it, but I mean, you kind of get an idea, I think, of
Right.
maybe
This is
three
straight from like the Champlain museum, I guess.
Yeah, this is I forgot where exactly I found this particular photo from, but it was deep in there. I had a they didn't want this particular steamship to be seen. But I mean, you think it's back in the 1800s. There's not a lot of people weren't taking photos like today of everything of everything.
Mhm.
It's just like, hey, that's just a ship. Why don't I take a picture of it?
Right.
Okay, so that's what the sheriff reported. It's like he saw this giant snake in the water type of thing, 25, 35 feet long, not as big as the 187 feet, but still that's very large for whatever's in the water, and big enough to hit the steamship and make it, turn over. Now,
So it
yeah.
completely like turned over, like on the verge of like sinking, or
I didn't see any accounts of it actually being like demolished and stuff like that. And I think it was salvaged. I didn't really see too much on the report. It just one little thing about it, just like,
Hmm.
hey, the people said it ran into the ship and it collided with it. And so I don't know. It doesn't seem like it would turn it over all the way. Maybe just kind of tipped it and it rocked,
Mhm.
type of thing. I don't know. But the same year, the New York Times reported, okay, New York Times, they're pretty reputable, right? Or, were.
Back then, yeah.
Yeah. That they reported that a railroad crew said that they saw a large serpent that had bright silvery scales that glistened in the sun. And then P.T. Barnum, you might know him, Barnum and Bailey's Circus,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
He's a bit of a showman. But he said in 1873 and again in 1870 or 1887, he offered $50,000 for the hide of the Lake Champlain serpent, accounting for inflation. Zane did some quick maths and whatnot. That would be the equivalent of like $1.3 million in today's money.
Wow.
So a
Okay.
good chunk of change for this. People are like, hey, yeah, I'll put up money for this thing. And Bailey would have snagged that up. He showed it off at the circus.
Was there a bounty for it to be alive, or I guess
The hide, so dead.
just so it just wanted it dead? Okay,
Yeah,
it's
the skin. I mean, it'd
probably
be hard to
easier.
capture something that big alive, I guess. But for his purposes, hey, if you can bring me a dead specimen, I'll give you this money.
Right.
And real stakes, real money for real people. They'll take it. So this is right here too, and this just shows you how much this thing has been seen.
Whoa,
It's
wow.
yeah, it's been reported like 300 reported sightings of this creature from Lake Champlain through the years, ranging from now all these sightings they vary a little bit, but they range from, hey, the creature was between 10 to 200 feet long. It has a dog-like or horse-like head, sometimes described more like a snake-like head, black or silvery. And in 1993, in Button Bay State Park, Vermont, it's right around the coastline of the lake, 2 women while swimming said they saw a, quote, baby champ swim between them. Yeah, that's kind of,
Yeah.
I already don't like getting in water where I can't see, and have something bob up between you. Nope, I'm out. It's
Yeah.
a lake. I don't know how
I'm
much
sure,
you
like-
swim in Lake Zane.
Not too much, but I've definitely had that thought, especially when I've knee boarded or I've been on a tube in the past where I'm just floating behind the boat. I'm like, there's nothing I can see here. Who knows? There could be something.
Do you I remember when I was a kid, we used to go up to lakes a lot, and we had a pontoon boat, so it's kind of like a little party boat or whatever. But
Mhm.
good for tubing behind and stuff like that. And we'd kind of go where there's like more brackishy water. But even there, it's like I hated it because it was like I know this is supposed to be fun for kids, but I was a very old kid. I was like, I don't like it. No,
Always an old man, I guess.
yeah, don't take me into the back, like in the rivers that feed this plant. I don't want in there. It's smooth, it's easy, but more stuff is in there. No, I just get me back on the boat. I'll just sit there. It's fine.
Well, I remember as a kid, like I always like knew like there's more stuff in the ocean.
Yeah.
But I'm like always like when I'm in a lake and it's deep, I'm like, what if it's just this one time and you encounter something like Champ?
Yeah.
Like, ooh,
Yeah, you never know. Especially, the natural lakes. We live near
yeah,
Lake
that's
Lanier.
true.
It's a man-made lake, so not as much fear with that. But I mean, I don't know. Didn't they find an alligator up there recently? Like, yeah, I think the people have pets and they release them in the lakes, and it's like, I'll just stay
Right.
on the shoreline. But anyways, okay. So there's some accounts. Lots of accounts, eyewitness accounts there. But how about some video evidence, Zane? I got
Yes,
something for you.
please. Yeah.
Here's now this is from an ABC News report from 2005, and I will preface this by saying that I had to work really hard to get high quality versions of these low quality videos, meaning they're low quality videos.
It's always low quality, but I
but here we
appreciate
go.
your efforts.
Sure.
Latest sighting by a couple of respected upstate New York fishermen who on a summer afternoon last year captured something on their digital camera.
As big around as my thigh, I'd say.
It made my hair stand on end at the time. It just didn't fit anything, any kind of creature that I'd ever seen.
Now, these 2 guys are not crackpots. They've lived around Lake Champlain all their lives and were skeptical about the legend of Champ until they saw this mysterious wake. Unfortunately, their story is much more vivid than their video.
Boy, that looks like a serpent.
What we saw always stayed right on the surface, and parts of it would come above the water. The back, or the nose, or the head. What in hell is that thing?
But Champ is camera shy, and the fishermen say this is the best picture they could get.
I'm 100% sure of what we saw. I'm not 100% sure of what it was.
The tape is authentic. 2 retired FBI analysts reviewed it for ABC News.
I can't find anything in there that would suggest or indicate to me that this has been fabricated or manipulated in any way. However, there's no place in there that I can actually see an animal or any other type of object on the surface.
Just an odd wake that for now merely adds to the further mystery of Champ, a legend that swims just below the surface and just out of camera range.
much.
Okay, so what do you think of that video, Zane?
Why can't we get good video for anything? Like, I know that was like the 90s or whatever, but
2005.
that was 2005. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure the broadcast version was much better. It was just like that thing has been passed around the internet for so much. I guess that, I mean, that's the best one I could find of it. But
one thing that makes me maybe not necessarily a red flag, but it's just like if that was a creature, it just seemed like it was moving so slow. It almost seemed like it was like drugged or something. Like that was just I just can't imagine this type of creature would be just floating like that. It almost looked like a dead creature or just like a log. Like it just
well, maybe it was just
why is it
running
so
itself.
goddamn hard to find like good video of these type of things?
Well, I mean, I'm not so much concerned with the speed of which it moves. I mean, we've seen like alligators move slowly through the water.
That's a fair good point. Good point.
Maybe it was just kind of chilling out, But yeah,
Right.
all you can kind of see is like some weird wake, and then at the end there, like some kind of mass in the water coming up by the boat, but you couldn't really make out what it was. And to the credit, I guess, of the what the FBI agents that said, well, it doesn't look like it's altered or anything like that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
why would you alter? I mean, you can get anything in the lake, I guess, that kind of looks like that. Although the wake was weird, it didn't look like there was much around it causing the wake. Like a boat or something. Like you can kind of
Mhm.
tell what a boat wake looks like. It was kind of like one was like ripply, kind of just sitting there in the middle of the water, from what I could tell.
Mhm.
Not a lot of good visuals from that particular one, Zane. But I got another one for you. I got another one.
I will say though, the
Mhm.
adjacent to the boat,
Yeah.
it did look kind of like a good look at like a fin or something like that. That's what
Yeah.
at least I thought.
It was something big in the water that was moving. What it
Mhm.
was, who knows?
Mhm.
Especially from that video. But maybe this video will help us get a little better idea of what Champ might be. So here I'll add this one to the. Let's check this. This one is from May 31st, 2009, from Lake Champlain near the Oakledge Park, Burlington, Vermont side. And it was shot on a potato, Zane. A potato. That's the quality of video we're getting here. So let me show you.
Great. Weird.
All right, so you got something here moving across the water.
Yeah.
Looks pretty substantial in size. Okay, looks like you got a head. Got a head.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the
Oh, there's
seahorse type head.
yeah.
Huh.
Okay. It goes on a little bit longer, where it just kind of like moves across to the the lake a little bit more. So that one a little bit better, I guess.
Right.
As far as you can see, it's something, some sort of something, and you can see more of its body because it's like a more above the water,
Mhm.
a little bit more closer to that first iconic picture, I guess we'd say, with the head out, right?
Right. It seems like the neck is like a little bit shorter, but maybe it was uh, kind of like
Yeah,
contained a bit. But the hump part, the body part of this animal, I guess, looked pretty big.
yeah, you could see the back, and that was from 2009. So again, before we really had good phones in everyone's pockets, I guess.
Mhm.
So you can kind of cut them a little bit of slack for that. Back from 2005, they were probably using a camcorder or
Mhm.
something. All right, so let's get into maybe some theories. What are we seeing here, Zane? What is Champ? I don't know. But let's before I get into that, I guess perhaps let's go. Let me go back to my slides here. Let's go a little bit more about Lake Champlain and its kind of like geography. So, a brief history lesson: Lake Champlain is connected to the Atlantic Ocean via the Richelieu River that flows from the lake north to south, or north to the St. Lawrence River, and then it drains into the Atlantic Ocean. Right.
Hmm.
So the the water flows up from the lake and then goes out to the arrows here you're seeing on is just like a route somebody took for or the Champlain, the guy who the lake is named after. This was during his
Oh, I see.
explorations of the lake. And he also, side note, he has a sighting of the Lake Champlain monster that lots of people attribute to Lake Champlain, but it was actually in a different part of it wasn't Lake Champlain. I think it was in the St. Lawrence River, or somewhere closer to that, that he had a sighting of something. I didn't include it in this episode just because it wasn't specific to Lake Champlain monster. But over the years, people were attributing that to the Lake Champlain monster because, the namesake of the lake saw something weird. But yeah, anyway, so that's kind of like how the lake is connected here to this water system with the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River and the Atlantic Ocean. And then Lake Champlain is actually a remnant of a much larger body of water that was called the Champlain Sea, which formed after the retreat of the glaciers during the last ice age from about 13,000 to 10,000 years ago. So, and here's a picture of that body of water. This is how big it was. Like,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all this stuff. It was essentially like another Great Lake here, but it was a sea, I guess you can say, and it was it lasted for about 3,000 years. This particular body of water, so pretty big. Prehistoric. You had during the glacier period, maybe you had some animals that are prehistoric that were living in this giant body of water.
Right.
A possibility, sure.
And to give our just regular audio listeners, Ottawa and Montreal are completely covered, or by this body of water way back then. So it is definitely a giant sea of a lake.
Yeah, I guess I don't know how big that would be. Maybe it looks like it's about the length of the size of the state of New York, maybe. Roughly, not quite as thick as New York, but definitely a lot of New England would be covered with this if it was on the United States map. But yeah, it's huge. So what can live here, Zane? What can live in a Lake Champlain? Let's see. How about an eel? Here's a theory. The Champ is really just a big eel that lives in this lake. And what you're seeing here, this is a picture of the largest American eel, or what we call freshwater eels around here. And they're found along the Atlantic coast areas. Primarily, they live in rivers and estuaries. Females can grow up to 4 feet long, and males about 1.5 feet long, and larger ones can weigh up to 9 pounds. Typically, though, they're 1 to 2 feet is what you're normally seeing with these creatures. And larger specimens, though, they are found in lakes, and they hunt for food at night. They're more nocturnal. And they usually eat small insects and worms, other fish, etc. And they can live between 5 and 40 years, I suppose. It's a big range difference, but it depends on where they're living is kind of what dictates their age there.
If they get up to like 40, do they grow bigger? Kind of like, I don't know, anacondas or whatever, like those type of creatures that just keep getting, or gators, crocs.
Yeah, so like the 4 foot long specimens are going to be ones that are closer, I guess, to the 40-year mark, and ones that are probably living in freshwater environments. I think if you're living more in like brackish water, their lifespans go down, more closer to the 5-year line. But yeah, but not that big of a creature, from what we get of them. I mean, still, that's pretty big, but nothing that somebody would be like, oh my God, that's a, lake monster, right? Unless there's just some freakish lake monster eel that's 200 feet long or something like that. But I don't know about that. Okay, but that's a freshwater eel. Maybe the sea has something that's bigger. Salt water. They have big beasts in the ocean. This lake is kind of connected to the ocean via the tributaries and the rivers leading out there. Maybe something swam up in there. Okay.
Whoa.
So this eel here is
looks just like the little mermaid henchman eels.
Yeah, I think, did I forget the slides for the I think I forgot the slides for the moray eel. But you know the moray eel, right? The one that's the ones that from the Little Mermaid. That those
Right.
ones with they're
They have
green.
they have like
Uh,
bigger fins, like or
yeah,
dorsal
they kind of
fins.
got like a mohawk fin looking thing.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, that's it's probably what most people think of when they think eel in the ocean. It's these
Mhm,
things that they kind of have their mean looking mouth,
mhm.
teeth. Those particular eels, moray eels, they can grow up to 8 feet long and weigh about 65 pounds, right? But this particular eel that you're seeing on the screen here, this is a conger eel, and the American conger eel can be found along the coast of the Atlantic, and is about 6 feet, 6.5 feet long, and they can weigh about 88 pounds. So I mean, this specimen you see this guy holding here, this is probably kind of near the top end of the range of how big the American conger eel can get, but they live in the ocean, so something like that maybe got in can get into Lake Champlain maybe, and that's kind of if that swam up next to you, you'd probably freak out, you
Yeah,
know.
that would no. No, thank you.
Okay, but still not that massive, right? So it doesn't quite seem to fit. Plus, these are saltwater creatures, and Lake Champlain is a freshwater lake, right? So maybe that doesn't quite work. Even if it's an errant one that gets up there, it's not going to necessarily have a population or something that you're going to see continuously. So what else in freshwater perhaps can get that big? Let's say catfish. All
Mm,
right, that's something we're all familiar with, I think, at least
mhm.
here in the United States. Um, so catfish, Lake Champlain does have catfish that live in it, notably the channel cat, and channel cats can get up to 20 pounds in the lake. That's not unheard of. The largest channel cat ever caught was 58 pounds and measured about 47 inches long. It's pretty hefty.
Mhm.
For comparison, this particular catfish I'm showing on screen, this one is about 37 pounds, and this was a channel catfish caught in West Virginia, and it's about 40 inches long. I will note one of my pet peeves here, Zane, in fishing pictures is when the fishermen hold the fish out toward the camera,
Right.
creating an optical illusion. They know what they're doing. Shame on you, fishermen. You
Yeah.
stop doing that. Just hold it up next to you like a normal thing, like you would display something. Try to make it look like it's bigger than it is. I hate that. Oh,
Yeah, I don't like being catfished by catfish photos.
yeah. Yes. Stop catfishing us.
Yeah.
But okay, it's a pretty big fish though, right? 37 pounds, 40, 58 pounds is the biggest one of these particular catfish. Nothing that you would say, I mean, still, I mean, you'd be impressed by it, but you're not going to say, oh my God, that's a monster, right?
Mhm.
Well, what about this
Ooh,
catfish? This is a Mekong catfish.
dang.
And these guys can reach 640 pounds and measure 8 feet. Truly a massive fish thing. Unfortunately, these guys live in Southeast Asia in the
Mm.
Mekong Basin. So, no, it's not this catfish unless somebody caught one and released it into Lake Champlain and it's just been sitting there for a while. But
Seems unlikely.
impressive.
Do these, have, like, the barbs like our American catfish? Do you know?
I don't know if they have you mean the bony little things on their fins? I don't know if they
Yeah,
do. But
they look
this
a
one
little
isn't
different.
even that big a specimen. I mean, they're endangered in where they are. So like the really big specimens, the 640-pound ones and stuff like that, they're even more rare. So this one doesn't look quite that big, but I mean it's huge. If that was in a lake, I mean it would probably have a go at your leg or something.
Oh god. Jeez.
Uh, yeah, but I don't know. It's they're pretty big. So okay, they don't live in this area. This is not a good candidate for it. But what if maybe there's some unknown catfish that lives in a lake in America that is like the Mekong and is just that big and we haven't discovered it yet? Maybe that could be an explanation for it. I don't know. The largest species that we have in the United States, the blue catfish, they can get up to 143 pounds. So I mean that's pretty
Mm,
big, but still not quite lake monster worthy in my
no.
opinion. But here's Here's something perhaps that is. Let me play this video for you.
This fish is 10 and a half feet, probably 500, maybe 600 pounds. We were just able to tag it, so it's probably never been caught. And now we're gonna release it back into the river. Woo! Unreal.
I would not want to be in front of his mouth like that. Like, I think that guy can have a go at you if he really wanted to. Like,
well, you know what that kind of fish is?
I don't know.
That's a sturgeon, and it was mentioned in an article earlier, right?
Okay, right.
So sturgeons, you might know them more. They're the ones that have the good caviar that people like to eat. That's where you get them from. So the largest sturgeon ever caught was a beluga sturgeon in Russia, and they can reach like 15, 20 feet long, and they can weigh like a ton. Right? They live in lakes and rivers. Typically large ones. Now, though, I think you would consider like 10 feet to be pretty large because they're kind of rare. But from what you see is, in Lake Champlain, you might have like a 10-foot sturgeon, something like that swims there, but people know about them. Like in that article, they mentioned it specifically. It's like, no, this isn't a sturgeon. This is separate from a sturgeon because the sturgeon was chasing it. Like we know what sturgeons are, right? So, but like I said, they're kind of rare, whatever. But in North America and in this region of Lake Champlain, you might see them. They're called rock sturgeons sometimes, and a typical one's like 7 feet long and 240 pounds. So, still a fairly big fish. Let me go back to my slides here. There's a little better picture there of sturgeons. You see, they're not going to really bite you. They got kind of that pointy snout.
I see. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
But I mean, check out their body though. They got these weird looking scales on their body, right? I think this is like a leading candidate for what lots of people attribute lake monster sightings to, or lake sturgeons. They say, "Oh, you're not really seeing this. You're seeing a big sturgeon that lives in the lake or something like that." But Lake Sturgeon or Lake Champlain does have sturgeons, like I said, but they are widely known to people of the time, especially in a time when they were more prevalent and people were fishing them more often. I don't think they're confusing them with lake monsters that they're describing how Champ looks like. I'm not sold on this being an explanation for lake monsters, and I think it's kind of dismissive, honestly. It's like if you saw that in the lake, Zane, you'd probably be like, "Oh my God, what is that? It's a giant fish." You're not going to be like, "Oh my God, it's a prehistoric beast" or something like that.
Right. Well, I mean, like the top of it, it could be like the hump that we're seeing, but in all these photos and videos, there's some sort of neck and small head attached. So it just looks a little different.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but let's go back to the few descriptions we have of this creature, right? So we got basically two types of, I guess, descriptions here. We got a black monster nearly 187 feet long with a head resembling a seahorse, and it could rear out of the water 15 feet, had 3 teeth and eyes the color of peeled onions with a white star on its forehead and a belt of red around its neck. So that's one description. That's the giant one. And then 2, we got the ones that's more in the 25, 30 foot range here. The second kind of description, a serpent with bright silvery scales that glistened in the sun, maybe 25, 30 feet long and massive enough to potentially flip over a boat. So 2, it sounds like different creatures to me that they're describing here. Now, I don't know, both of these descriptions, I mean, they sound pretty wild in either case. I can't think of anything that I know of that would fit into one. And the second one, though, the smaller description, the 25 to 30 feet long with silvery scales, it does kind of sound like an oarfish. You've heard of these guys? You seen these before?
Yeah, they're a weird looking prehistoric fish.
They're definitely strange, yeah. So oarfish, they can reach 36 feet in length. They're silvery, but they live in the deep ocean. So when we see them floating, they're usually like floating around the surface because they're about to die or something like that. and they typically do shortly after.
Hmm.
And now I guess it could be plausible that something like this, like an oarfish, got lost and swam up from the Atlantic up into, up the rivers and then into Lake Champlain. But I can't see that really happening. And if it did happen, maybe it would happen once. It was like it would be like a 1 in a billion thing that would, like, to make that journey from the deep sea, from the Atlantic down the St. Lawrence River, and then that connecting river into Lake Champlain. It seems very unlikely for a saltwater thing like this to fight river currents and make it to Lake Champlain. So I don't know if I'm sold on this particular creature being it, but it is silvery. It's about 35 feet long, and it does have some of that red on it too. So I don't know, perhaps, but maybe it's something more prehistoric. So we got the Basilosaurus, right? It's a primitive whale that lived about 30 million years ago, 40 million years ago.
Also,
And
sorry, just like going back real quick,
yeah.
like that weird little thing coming out of the top of its head. Maybe
Mhm.
that could be confused with a horn or something like that. I'm not sure what that exactly. Maybe it's like some sort of antenna type thing. But
Yeah, I think it's like a fin. It's like part of its dorsal or what's the
Mhm.
top fin thing. Yeah, I mean it could be like if you were seeing it at a glance it'd be horn like, but most of these people, I mean, they're seeing it, you know, this thing doesn't rear out of the water.
No.
It just kind of like the guys in the top left holding it there, like it just kind of floats flatly on
Right.
on the surface. And again, it's a deep water fish, so it's really rare to see these things.
Not crazy menacing. It's not the legend you want to see from Lake Champlain with its dumb face.
It does look kind of derpy, but
Yeah.
I don't think this thing would tip a boat over either, right? It's not.
Mhm.
It doesn't have a lot of mass to it. I mean, it's big, but it's not going to knock over a steamboat.
Right.
But as I was mentioning, though, maybe something that is some people think maybe Lake Champlain monster could be is the Basilosaurus, which means king lizard. And here's a picture of it,
Oh wow.
Zane. You can see it's the bones are on the right there, and the left is
Uh-huh.
just the artist's interpretation there. So I think they call him the Zegalodon now. I think he got a name change. They were between 80 to 100 feet long, but that was a long time ago. And surely something like this that would be seen, like if this was in that lake, you think, well, this would be noticed a lot and
Mhm.
captured by now, you would think. Maybe there's a surviving population or descendants of a slender toothed whale. That's what this is. This is like a very slender toothed whale, and maybe it periodically pops up at Lake Champlain. Maybe they breed there or something, and
Mhm.
they come from the ocean. Like salmon, they make journeys from the ocean to come back and breed where they're from. And if Lake Champlain was that giant ocean or inland sea that it was, maybe they bred there, and maybe they're coming back to the ancestral lands, even though it's much smaller now, and they just do their thing and go back to the ocean.
Well, like you said, like, this monster hasn't been spotted too much, but I feel like if
Mm.
these ancient whales, I guess, if they're anything like their modern descendants, like whales, they're pretty frequent. You see them a lot. I don't know if these ancient ones, if they had to breathe as much as whales, breathe air. So, but that's why this doesn't necessarily pop to my attention because it doesn't, we would maybe see them more.
Perhaps, yeah, you don't know how long, like how much above the water these guys would go. If they're more nocturnal, maybe
Mm.
they'd only come up at night or something like that. It's just hard to say. Of course, these things have been extinct for millions and millions of years, so it's kind of hard to say that. But whales do get lost periodically upstream in the fresh water. It happened a few years ago, I think, in England. There was like I think a whale or a dolphin or something that was stuck. It was in the river going the wrong way, and it couldn't get out,
Mm.
so they had to kind of rescue it from getting there. So the theory of some deep sea creature like that getting lost into fresh water, plausible to me. But would it be sustainable? I don't know, because it couldn't live in fresh water, I don't think. Now, what about some kind of freshwater, pinniped, like a seal or like a manatee or something like that? Maybe that could explain it. Here's some pictures of seals just to give you an idea. They're pretty big, especially these elephant seals. I mean, they're giant.
Mhm.
And there are a few freshwater seal species. Most people associate them with the ocean because they live in the ocean. But there's a couple that live in freshwater lakes, mostly up in Russia, and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe this is a manatee, obviously.
Mhm.
Stellar sea cow was huge. It was like 20 feet long.
Oh, wow.
They're extinct now. I think in the 1800s is when they were last seen or something like that. But maybe there's a freshwater lake version of one of those that live there, and they're kind of, I don't know. Manatees are kind of slow and derpy. I don't know. It seems it doesn't seem like
I
they
mean,
would be a likely candidate for this thing. I don't know. So, but maybe like was mentioned earlier, floating logs or sticks, misidentified creatures, um, like perhaps a moose, Zane.
a moose.
Yes, like look at this head. Doesn't this look an awful lot like that video of the number 2 one I sent you or
Yeah,
we watched?
that's true. Like, I mean, I did kind of think about like it kind of had like some mammal movement characteristics. I thought, like, I was thinking like a wombat or something moving around, but this could be like the bigger version of a wombat moving around. That's what it kind of reminded me, like some mammal type characteristics.
Yeah, well let's look at it again, Zane. Let's watch that video. I'll pull it up again. Keep this profile in mind here. Kind of like that big honker nose.
Moose.
Let's watch it again. So the back's out of the water a little bit, like a moose would swim. It's obviously either like a juvenile or a female, perhaps moose. Doesn't have antlers. Swimming across the lake to get to the other point. Vermont has moose. Now they're in that area. Here's turning its head.
Yeah.
Kind of got that bulbousy front end. You can see like almost like little ears flapping on the back there. Moose are great swimmers.
They're making a pretty good amount of weight.
Yeah, I mean they're big creatures. So I think that video is a moose swimming across the lake, perhaps.
And maybe at the beginning point where the head looks small, maybe it was like looking directly at the camera or away, and so
Yeah.
it finally turned and you saw the longer profile. Um, yeah, that's possible because it does look similar to that photo you just
Yeah.
showed.
And when you talk about some of those accounts where they describe it as having like a horse head description, moose have
Yeah.
kind of like a horse headed shape and they can kind of rear out of the water a little bit.
Mhm.
I mean, not 15 feet like, that one person described, but it that does make sense. Perhaps at a distance, you see something more silhouetted. It's a dark shape, has a big head to it, creates a lot of wake. It's heavy. I think that could account for a lot of these sightings, especially near dawn or dusk. When maybe it's more active. You're not getting a good look at it at distance. Um, but maybe what if like that 187-foot long one, what if it was like a moose that was tangled up in like a fishing net and it was dragging a fishing net behind it, so you got this big long thing you could see like with some mass to it moving around. That would kind of make sense, right? And if the fishing net had little fish or bits of whatever in it, it's going to attract larger fish,
Hmm.
maybe like the sturgeon or the garfish, the billfish that they mentioned. I could see that maybe kind of like following behind as it's kicking up debris from the thing. And if it had like a red thing around its neck or whatever, maybe that was part of the fishing net or like the markers on the net that was red and it was kind of draped over it. So
Mhm.
that could be a plausible explanation. I don't know though. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of different descriptions that describes different looking creatures. You got, the all black one or whatever, and you got more of a silvery one that shines. So
Mhm.
that explanation,
Scales.
yeah, scales they're seeing. I don't know. I'm kind of stumped, I guess, as to like a good explanation for this creature. I think maybe a little bit of everything. It could be a cause, misidentifying of moose swimming. It could be logs in the water. It could be, maybe a remnant population of some kind of creature. Who knows? Honestly, it's hard to say. Aside from some grainy videos we have,
Of course.
and some photos, until we get something better, we're not going to really be able to, sink our teeth into it. But maybe I have a good explanation. It's kind of out there though. If you think like, all right, if this thing isn't a hoax or a misidentified animal of something real or whatever, what if it's like a time slip, Zane? Like you're seeing a replay of an ancient animal that lived there, like some kind of quantum slip. Like you've heard kind of time travel stories. People see like people
Mhm.
like wearing old clothes and talking weirdly in an old building or something like that as a time slip. Maybe the same thing can happen with animals. Maybe that's something that we're seeing in this situation. I don't know. Do you have a theory?
That's a little. I mean, as cool as that theory is, it's a little out there for me. But I like the idea, especially in this case, how it's there's a connection to the ocean
Yeah.
with these rivers, these like I guess I don't know how small that channel water gets once it enters the Lake Champlain. But
I think it's navigable.
okay, so in that case, that's what I like about this story, and I want to believe that maybe because of that connection to the sea, you can get some bigger creatures that come in, and maybe some ones that are left over from prehistoric times. Uh, so that's my feeling of going back in time. Time is that like there's still some creatures that are big enough. That's why, like Loch Ness is a little harder to believe. I mean, even though I think there's some deep parts to it. Um, there's not an immediate connection to the ocean
Mhm.
unless there are some like hollow channels that I'm not aware of. Uh, but that's what I like about this story, and I think I like I said, I kind of want to believe that there are some ancient creatures that are still around,
Sure.
and maybe there's enough food for them and all that.
Yeah, definitely enough food there, and it's big enough to hide something, I think, because it's a massive
Yeah.
lake.
Hmm.
And I think if I were to like put it up against Loch Ness, like which one is more plausible of existing, I think Champ would be more plausible just because, like you were saying, its connection to the ocean still. It's an open system.
Hmm.
It's old. It was there, with the Great Lake or like the inland sea that it used to be.
Right.
Um, maybe, who knows? I mean, there's so many weird things out there, like especially in the ocean. And what if Lake Champlain has some like underwater caves or something that it just likes to sit in? I mean,
Hmm.
400 feet deep is a lot of water to hide something. But maybe now, I guess knowing everything that we know, if we re-examine this particular photo here that we see, the famous one of Lake Champ from 1977, if we relook at this thing, Zane, do you still see um, a monster type creature, or do you see anything else?
No, I still see kind of monster like creature, like dinosaur-ish
Hmm.
type creature.
Okay,
But that's like I said, I think I'm just that's
you
just
want
me.
to believe.
I want it. I want it to be a dinosaur.
The
Something
only
similar.
thing with this photo that kind of strikes me as odd, Zane, is the neck part. Like you see, it almost looks like it's bending. Like if this is the creature, my arm, like it almost looks like it has like an elbow bend going
Yeah.
back to where its head is, right?
Right.
Like to me, that doesn't look like a natural neck type of bend. Like because it looks like it's like almost 90 degrees. Like right at that part where it gets really bright and shiny,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it looks like it's kind of bent, like it has too sharp of an angle bend to it to me. Like a log might do that, it seems. I don't know.
One
I
thing
mean,
that's odd about this now that we're bringing it up is like the light is so bright on that part of
mhm.
the neck. Why is it so bright there? And then like the supposed head and the hump, why are they blacked out? Was like,
Hmm.
I mean, I guess it could be an angle and shadows and blah blah blah,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's interesting. Now that I'm looking at it more, it looks more and more weird. Like it doesn't look.
It doesn't look as natural as you first thought. Yeah.
Yes, now that we're taking a look at it, interesting.
Yeah, and it almost looks like if I was there taking pictures of this thing, I would think I would get another picture of it. Not just one and oh, it's gone, but like maybe oh, there's like its hump going underwater, or like where's like I'm pretty sure like you could have taken a click, unless the creature was like I'm up, then I'm down. Like, I don't think it was doing that, but maybe I don't know.
Yeah, there's always just one photo, one video, the worst.
I don't know. Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, Zane, what do you think this thing lies? Like 10 being strongest evidence of it being plausible, and 1 being like no way.
Um, for this photo,
Well, no, just the creature in general
oh,
for everything we went over.
I'll say 50%. Give it a 5.
Solid 5. Okay.
Because especially for this channel of water, there's a potential for like all sorts of different creatures in it.
Mm-hmm.
So that means like for like Nessie, I feel like it goes lower because again, I don't know how deep it goes, blah blah blah. But this seems like there's more likely for newer things to be discovered.
Okay. I think I would give it a 6
Okay.
because of the amount of sightings that there are, and the type of people that were making the sightings seem kind of credible, like the sheriff and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, I think some people are playing into it, like they want like, oh, I saw something weird, a moose they probably know it's a moose, but just like, well, I don't know, I didn't get a good look at it, so it must have been Champ. So I think there's a little bit of that, but yeah, I think a 6 is fair on it. 5,
Mhm.
6, that's good.
Yeah, there's some hope there. There's
Yeah,
some
there's
hope.
some hope. I think maybe our next vacation up to New England, I've never had one, but my next one there, I will hunt this creature and bring it to justice.
Please do. We need some we need some legit cryptids on our show and then you can get $1.5 million from the ancestors of
Yeah, Barnum and
Barnum and
Bailey.
Bailey.
I
Yeah,
don't think
there you
they
go.
exist anymore, but whatever.
Well, you can sell it to your local fair and get some
Yes.
corn dogs out of it.
But perhaps even more amazing than this creature, Zane, is the music that it generates. What do we got
Mu-
this week?
Music is always the great unifier. So let's see. Where'd it go? Oh, it's up here. So here we go. We have our locks and legends.
Islands whisper ancient tales. The waters deep where monsters sail. Mist rolls in where
We're very
secrets
Mumford and Sons this week.
Yes, I couldn't think of the band name. I'm like, who's that? Zach Brown? I'm like,
Not Zach Brown.
yeah, Mumford and Sons.
Echoes of the past arise. Shadow shapes in foggy skies. Waves that hide the tales untold. Legends born in waters cold.
That's a very sad chant moving across there. Yeah.
Locks and legends live together. Monsters swim through Scottish weather. Every ripple
We did not talk about
tells
Scott.
a
Oh well.
story. In
We
their
didn't find what?
depths there lies the glory.
Well, this episode wasn't exactly a focal point on Scotland, but I guess
Oh no,
I added
fooled
that in
ya.
there. You fooled me. But I guess that's the one I typically think of with Loch Ness the Monster. So now I feel like having a very dark and high alcoholic IPA. I need to get a fedora
Yeah.
and a banjo, and we need to start singing about Lake Champlain Monster, aka Champ.
I think so. I think next time we should bring in some props for the band playing accompaniment along with the songs. I think that'd be
It's not
fun.
bad.
Yeah, let's do that.
I had a
But
couple
until then,
costumes in the. Oh, sorry, I had a couple costumes in the first couple episodes. I gotta, especially when we get near Halloween, gotta get a little more creative.
I'm sure when this comes out, it'll probably be around Halloween. So how far
That's right.
back? We're like we're like a month out, I think, on our recording. Deep in the weeds behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But that's all right. So check out our other episodes, guys. And if you have any lake monster tales you want to share with us, or you saw a creature, or you have evidence, even better than the potato videos that we had from earlier, send it in to us. We'll tell your tale, because we're the telltale guys. Saying, where can they find us?
All right, so send us email at heyguys@telltaleguys.com. All our socials are Telltale Guys. For Facebook, it is Telltale Guys Podcast. But yeah, give us a follow, a like, comment, because we'll comment back with some snarky replies and try to hunt you down for anything negative you say. Just kidding. Yeah. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy this episode, and
try better next week.
Yeah. Bye.
Josh and Zane, they sat down. Mike's hot and stories abound. Champlain shadow in the night. Mystery deep, can it take flight? Monster tales, old and new. Eel or fish, what could be true? Bigfoot cousin on loose in the dark. Answers hiding, not a single mark. Blurry footage again and again. Is it real or just pretend? Lake so deep, secrets down low. Will we ever truly know? Waves crash on the silent shores. Legends see through ages' doors. They talk and laugh, hours fly. Is it real, that question why? Skeptics laugh, believers swear. Waters still don't always care. In the deep might something hide, where the unknown fears reside. I strain for a decent peek, insomnia for another week. Podcast tales that keep us mad, lost in questions ever draped in sad.